Hi students, hope you're all safe at home and doing well. So today I'm here to teach about transaction management in DBMS. So before we go in detail about transactions and transaction management, let us briefly discuss about what is database and what is database management system. Okay, coming to data. What is data? Any known fact is called as data. Like so-and-so student is studying in this college. Rohini is a student of so-and-so college. In this college, there are totally 500 students. So many branches are there. All this is some data. And we need something wherein we can store this data perfectly. Okay, so in olden days, they used to maintain all these data in registers and they used to update these registers manually. But in this modern life, it has become very easy for maintaining all this data with the help of database management system. So what is this database? Database is an organized collection of interrelated data. So here we need to concentrate on two terms, organized and interrelated. By term organized, we mean that the data is stored in the form of in neatly structured format so that whatever we search for, we'll get it easily. Right, and the term interrelated means only the data which is related to that particular subject we are storing in that thing. So whichever organization you go, whether it is medical department or educational institutions or whatnot, every organization, even in supermarkets, everything is automized. Day to day, around megabytes and gigabytes of data is generated. So this data, they need to store somewhere which is stable and they can easily retrieve it later. Okay, so for this purpose, we will use database. Database is nothing but an organized collection of interrelated data. Coming to database management system. Database management system is a software which is used to manage this database. Means using this software, using this database management system, we can create the database, we can add the data into the database, or we can retrieve the data from the database. Everything you can do with the database. Now, apart from these operations, database management system performs one more important function called as transaction management. So here we come to a topic called transaction management. What is transaction? Transaction. Take real-time examples. You go to a bank and execute some transaction. You withdraw some amount, or you deposit some amount, or you transfer some amount from one account to another account. These all transactions. These are all the bank transactions. So how do you think these transactions are executed? Everything is automized. The moment you go, what they are doing? They are entering your details and the banker is clicking one button. So when he clicks that button, at the back side of that button, some code is executed. Okay, so this code is written by the application developers and that code is nothing but the transaction. That code is nothing but the transaction. So transaction is nothing but a piece of code, a sequence of steps. So this is a database wherein we are storing entire data in a structured format. Here we are storing the data in a relational format. Relational format means we are storing the data in the tables, in the form of tables. That is why we call this DBMS also has relational database management system. Fine. Now, coming to our topic, transaction. Transaction is nothing but a logical unit of program execution that accesses and possibly modifies various data objects. So now you do the bank transaction. What is the code over there? You're going and the banker is withdrawing the amount and changing the thing. So how the transaction runs, if you look at the slide, just see what this transaction T1 is doing, how is the code behind that button, what it is doing. So first, every transaction, every code, this we are simply writing in pseudo code which is not in any language. So every transaction begins with a begin statement, begin transaction, and every transaction ends with a commit statement. And in between, if you see the statements over here, what are the statements? First, it is reading the value of A. A is nothing but my balance. balance. So it is reading the balance of A, let it be some 10,000. From that, it is debiting 500 and writing back the balance back to the database. So in order to transfer some $500 from account A to account B, this particular transaction T1 must be executed. So what is this transaction? It is reading the value of A from the database and debiting some 500 rupees from that and writing back the balance again back to the stable storage. Where do you think this database is stored? In the stable storage. And where do you think this transaction is executing? In the CPU. So CPU must execute this transaction. In order to execute the transaction, it needs the value of A and B, which it will be fetching from the database. So it is fetching the values with the help of read and write statements and updating that A and B values and writing back into the database. Okay, so this particular code, this particular 8 lines of code, we call it as transaction, right? So now here, if you look at the transaction, 8 lines of the transaction is, first in these 8 lines, 4 lines are read-write statements. These read-write statements are executed by the IO devices, whereas the update statements, that is A minus 500 and B plus 500, is done by the CPU. Fine. So this is a set of code which we call it as transaction. Okay. So now moving to the next slide, what are the properties of this transaction? There are 4 properties for the transaction and we call collectively these properties as ACID properties. So what are these ACID properties? A stands for atomicity. Atomicity in sense, all the steps of the transaction. How many steps were there in the previous slide? In the previous transaction, there were 8 steps. So all these 8 steps must be executed as one particular unit. Okay, otherwise nothing must execute. It should not be like the first 3 statements of the transaction executed and the remaining statements didn't execute. It should not be like that. Fine. So how many statements were there? Read A, update the A balance as A minus 500 and write back the balance of A into the database. And then read the balance of B, update the balance of B, update the balance of B to B plus 500 and write back B to the database. So this is transaction, and every transaction starts with a begin statement and ends with a commit statement. Now I would like to say over here that these read and write and this statements will be executed by the IO devices, whereas this update statements and all are executed by the CPU. Okay, so every transaction will begin with begin and every transaction will end with commit. Commit means generally it is whatever changes you are doing to the database are permanently saved in the database. Atomicity means either all the statements of the transaction must execute completely or nothing must execute. Right? It should not be like only three statements executed and remaining statements didn't execute. No. Nothing should execute or everything must execute. This is the atomicity property. Coming to the consistency. Consistency of a transaction means correctness. Consistency means correctness. So what is this correctness? Before even execution of transaction and after executing the transaction, it should be same. The database must be correct. Let's suppose the A's balance is 10,000 and from that he is transferring some $500 to B, 500 rupees to B, and here B's balance was only 5,000. After depositing that 500, it will become 5,500. So even after executing the transaction or before executing the transaction, the database must be correct. This property we call it as consistency. Right? Now coming to the third property, isolation. Isolation is nothing but when 2 or more transactions execute. Let's suppose I went to the bank and at the same time there are many other customers executing their transactions. So when 2 or more transactions are executing concurrently, their intermediate results of one transaction should not affect the other transaction. Okay, so this isolation we will see it very clearly when we'll come to this concurrency control. So for now you just try to remember that isolation is a property wherein when 2 or more transactions execute concurrently, the intermediate results of one transaction should not affect the other transaction. Fine. Coming to the next property called as durability. What is durable? General meaning? Durable is persistence. That means whatever data I have stored in a database must be persistent. Whatever the data, the transaction have changed, that must be persistent. Even if the system crashes or even if whatever happens to the system, my database must be persistent. Okay, my data must persist in the database. Let's suppose yesterday I went to bank and I have deposited around 1 lakh. Okay, so the same day evening I came to know that the bank got a short circuit and all the servers got crashed. And the next day morning itself I rushed to the bank and I was just inquiring about my balance. That bankers cannot say that my balance they cannot see. They don't know. Whatever may happen to your server or a database or whatever it is, my data should persist. They should be able to tell my data. Okay, this we call it as durability. This can be easily achieved by maintaining the duplication of data. Fine. So that is one of the property of transaction. Transaction processing system maintains the duplicates data. So these are the 4 properties. We collectively call these properties as ACID properties. Fine. Now, this is the example, bank example taken. This is one of the table. So this is the transaction. Maybe I am transferring some $500 from account A to balance of Joseph to John. Okay. So moving to the next slide, what are the states of the transaction? In its lifetime, transaction will be in its 5 states. The first state of the transaction, we call it as active state. As the transaction begins, the transaction is in the active state. Okay, first it executes this statement, so we call it as the transaction is in the active state. Once it starts executing these statements, if it executes all the statements of the transaction till here before executing commit, we call this transaction to be in the partially committed state. Fine, partially committed state. Once it executes this commit also, then it will be going into the committed state. From partially committed state, it will go into the committed state where whatever changes it has done. What changes it has done? A's balance was 10,000. B's balance was 5,000. A's balance it changed it to 9,500 and B's balance it changed it to 5,500. So these whatever changes it has done, that changes are permanently saved in the database. That state we call it as committed state. Fine. Now, from active state, once the transaction begins, what happens is, it may execute 2 or more statements. Because of some failure, suddenly the keyboard or suddenly some hardware, suddenly there was a power failure. Because of some reason, the transaction would have executed only first 3 statements or first 4 statements and the transaction failed. Then it will come to the failed state. From active state, it may come to the failed state. And from failed state, it will go to the aborted state. Aborted means all the changes, whatever it has done. And it might have done only 3 steps. These 3 steps it has done. What it has changed the A's balance to 9,500. But it didn't change the B's balance to 5,500. It executed only these 3 statements. Then what is this aborted state is, it must roll back. Whatever changes it has done, that changes must be restored back to the previous state. A's balance must again be changed into 10,000. That is aborted in sense the transaction must be killed and whatever changes the transaction has done, that must be restored back to the previous state. So these are the states of the transaction. So what all we have seen, what is transaction, properties of the transaction and states of transactions. So moving to the next, okay, why are we dealing with these transactions? What do we have to do with this transaction? So we know that transaction means a sequence of steps. If it executes this sequence of steps, some operation will be taking place in the database. But why are we studying about this? What are the 2 main issues that deal with transaction is? These are the 2 main issues that deal with transaction. First one is failures. So when we are executing the transaction, because of some reason, the transaction may fail. Maybe that is hardware problem. So here we are not learning about that hardware problems. The second main issue which we need to deal with the transactions is concurrent executions of transactions. concurrent executions of transactions. So what are these concurrent executions of transactions? So now here we'll come to the isolation property. Now you will better understand what is this isolation property. So first let us understand what is this concurrent executions. Let's suppose there are two, this we will name it as T1 transaction, another transaction we will name it as T2 transaction. Let's suppose this transaction is transferring some 500 rupees from account A to account B. Fine. And we have another transaction T2 which is doing the sum of A and B. So it is reading the value of A and it is reading the value of B and it is performing sum is equal to A plus B. It is adding both the things and commit. Begin transaction. So transaction T2 is adding A and B values, whereas transaction T1 is transferring some 500 rupees from account A to account B. So if you observe, both the transactions are working on the same database objects. What are the database objects both the transactions are working on? Both the transactions are working on A and B. T1 is also working on A and B. T2 is also working on A and B. So, and one more thing is, these two transactions may execute serially or parallelly. First we will see what is the serial execution of transaction. Serial execution of transaction, how many lines of code is there in T1? 8 lines of code is there. So what is serial execution of transactions is, if you have transaction T1, all the 6 lines of transaction T1 executes, then all the 4 lines of T2 executes, then this type of executions we call them as serial execution. Or else all the T2, 4 lines of T2 executes and then 6 lines execute. After T2 executes, then T1 executes. We call this type of schedules. Actually, this series of transactions we call it as schedule, and this type of schedules we call them as serial schedules. We call these schedules as serial schedules. Fine. Okay. Now, what are these concurrent schedules or parallel schedules? Fine. Okay. So, what is this concurrency? What is this concurrency? How to deal with concurrency we are going to see. Now here, see T1, how many statements are there? First it will read the database object and then it will change the A value and it will write the A value. So these read and write operations are performed by the IO devices. CPU will perform only the updations. So when IO devices are performing this read and write operation, CPU is completely free. It is sitting idle. So what does it do is, in order to improve the efficiency of the system, what the CPU will do is, it will stop executing this T1 and it will go to the T2. It will execute T2 transactions. When it is free, it will go to transaction. That is, IO devices and CPU will run parallelly and CPU will jump from one transaction to the another transaction. CPU will jump from one transaction to the another transaction in order to execute multiple transactions in unit time. Okay, so this is what is concurrency. Serial transactions are nothing but if transactions are executing one after the other, we call them as serial transactions, and if these transactions are executed simultaneously, parallelly, we call these type of transactions as concurrent transactions. How the concurrency is possible? There is only one CPU, only one server is there, and there is only one CPU is there. How is it possible? How the concurrent executions are possible is, CPU, some statements are executed by the IO devices. So when IO devices are busy executing IO statements, CPU will be executing some other transaction. So this is how the multiple transactions can execute simultaneously. A live example of this is, you will go to the bank. The banker is busy counting what is the balance of all the accounts. So that transaction obviously will be taking a lot of time. There may be hundreds of balances, so he will be adding all the balances. But you will go, and if he asks you to wait for half an hour, you will be waiting? No. Okay. Not only that, now ISET notifications have come up. So many notifications have come up. Usually student mentality is they'll wait till the last date. No, you're not supposed to do that. Why? Last dates, it may create a problem. So what is the problem? Last date, number of students are applying at the same time, and there is only one CPU, one server which is processing all these transactions. So what will happen? Multiple transactions can be executed at the same time, but the CPU is busy executing these transactions. So it will be taking a lot of time for you to execute that transaction. Okay, so that is why server will give you a response saying that server is down. So this is concurrent executions of transactions. So what is the advantage of concurrency is why we have seen why concurrent executions of transactions must be taken. What are the advantages of these things? It will improve the processor speed. It will improve the processor efficiency, and disk utilization also will be increased. Disk utilization will be increased and processor efficiency. In unit time, the processor can perform multiple transactions. Instead of one single transaction, it could perform maybe in 5 seconds. It would, if it is going for serial transactions, it would have taken 10 seconds to complete these 2 transactions. But if they have executed parallelly, interleaving each other, within 5 seconds, both the transactions will be executed. Reduced average response time. Another advantage of concurrent execution is response time will be very much reduced. So these are the advantages of concurrency executions. Then, okay, fine, very much that the concurrent execution of transactions is doing very well, which improves the CPU efficiency and all. But it will lead to a lot of problems. It will lead to 3 major problems, and these problems we call them as, the first problem is lost update problem. Lost update problem, dirty read problem, and dirty read problem or uncommitted dependency problem. In different textbooks, different headings is given. You can go for anything. And the third one is phantom read problem or inconsistent analysis problem. So we'll see one by one what are the problems will be raised because of this concurrency. Now first one we will see lost update problem. If you could observe these transactions, there are 2 transactions running concurrently, T1 and T2. Please try to observe the statements in transaction T1 and T2. At time T1 means maybe at 10 o'clock. What is T1 doing? It is reading the balance of database object. Balance. It is reading balance. So when it read, it was 1500. Fine. At time T2, what T1 is doing? It is adding 2000 to the balance. Okay, how much the balance will become? 2000 plus 1500, 3500. Okay, but at time T3, transaction T2 started executing and it read the balance. When it read the balance, how much it could be? 1500 only, because whatever changes T1 has done that are not reflected yet in the database. So whatever changes, whatever updates the T1 has done, that is lost. Fine. So T2 now it will read the balance. When it reads the balance, it will be only 1500. So what does when T2 when it reads the balance, T2 when it reads the balance will be 1500. So what does it do? It will do minus 2000. Can it do? Yes. So this successfully completed update. The update is done by the T1, which it has added, that is 3500 it became. So when it read the balance, it is not seen by the T2. So what does T2 think? That the update whatever is done by the transaction T1 is not clear to the T2. This is lost update problem. Fine. So actually I think there is something this thing. So what T1 has changed the balance to balance is equal to balance plus 2000. But this change is not seen by the transaction T2. When it read the balance, it read whatever is there in the database. So it read only 1500. So from that 1500, it withdrawn 200 and the balance it changed to how much it will be? 1300. Fine. But here it committed earlier. It adds added 1500 to 2000, 3500 plus minus 200. It should be actually 3300. The balance is only 1300. So lost update means whatever update the T1 transaction has done, that is not seen by the other transaction. Fine. Then coming to the next slide, the dirty read problem. What is this dirty read problem is, the transaction has not committed yet. T1 transaction has not committed yet, but whatever changes it has done, it has written back to the database. Just see here, the T1 transaction has not committed yet. It has changed the balance to 2000 and the balance is 3500. It is written back to the database 3500. Then what is this T2 transaction doing? It is reading the balance. When it read, it was 3500. So it has taken the balance 2000 from that and how much is the balance? 1500. It has written back and it has committed. But T1 transaction which has updated the balance is rolled back. What do we mean by roll back? All the changes whatever it has done will be rolled back to the previous state. So this thing we call it as dirty read. Dirty read means the transaction didn't commit yet. T1 transaction is not committed yet. But that changes, whatever changes are done by the transaction will be read by the other transaction. But T1 transaction is immediately rolled back, means whatever changes it has done are undone by the transaction. So, and then last problem is phantom read problem. Phantom read problem is, what do we mean by phantom is a newly inserted row, we call it as a phantom. Newly inserted row, we call it as a phantom. Let's suppose transaction T2, a banker is counting all the balances in the bank. There may be some hundreds of accounts in the bank. He is calculating the sum of all the balances and he is finding the total of that. But when this transaction normally takes a lot of time. So meanwhile what happens, there comes the other two customers to open an account. Raj and Gautam has come to open an account and they have deposited 3000 and 2000. And this transaction didn't consider that values. Whatever newly inserted values are there that are not considered by the ongoing transaction. This problem we call it as phantom read problem. So these are lost update and all these problems will arise. Why? Because the transactions are executing parallelly, concurrently at the same time, and both the transactions are accessing the same database object. If you could see over here, transaction T1 as well as transaction T2 are both accessing A and B. As long as it works on different tables, it doesn't matter at all. Let's suppose transaction T1 is working on student table and transaction T2 is working on employee table. It doesn't matter at all. Both the transactions are working on different database objects. But once the transactions are working on same database objects and both are concurrently executed, these all three problems will arise. Fine. So, what is the solution? Don't we execute the transactions concurrently? No, we have to execute the transactions concurrently to improve the efficiency of the system. But how do we control this concurrency? Concurrency is leading to so many other problems. The database is becoming inconsistent. So, how to control this concurrency? So, in order to control this concurrency, there are different mechanisms. But here in this session, I am going to tell you one concurrency control mechanism that we call it as lock-based control, log-based protocol. We have other mechanisms like timestamp-based protocol, log-based protocols and all. Now, in this session, we are going to learn this lock-based protocol. What is this lock-based protocol? Lock-based protocol will use locks, and if you use this log-based protocol, it will ensure serializability. What do we mean by this serializability? Even if the transactions execute concurrently means what? Two transactions are executing simultaneously. How many lines are there in T1? 6 lines are there. Maybe only 2 lines executed, then the 2 lines of T2, then 3 lines of T1, then 1 line of T2. Like this. This is called as concurrent execution of transaction, whereas this type of execution we call it as serial execution of transaction. So what is happening over here? Though we execute the transactions concurrently, if the final result of this execution is same as your serial execution of transactions, we call it as serializability. If the final result, the final output of this concurrent execution of transaction is same as your serial transactions, then we call it as serializability. Fine. So this serializability can be achieved with the help of lock-based protocol. So what is this lock-based protocol? Lock-based protocol uses two kinds of locks. If you see, two kinds of locks, shared logs and exclusive locks. So there are two types of locks, shared locks and exclusive locks. So if you apply shared lock, you can just read the data from the database object. But if you apply exclusive locks, you can read as well as write from the database. Shared locks will allow you only to read, and exclusive locks will allow you to read as well as write. Okay, and one more thing, the compatibility among these locks. When you apply shared lock, other users, other transactions can also apply shared lock. That means at the same time, iSet notification has come up. iSet notification, only myself, am I reading the iSet notification? No, PDF. It is just a notification which everyone can download and everyone can read at the same time. Okay, but if I am applying the notification when I am submitting, it is the concurrency should be controlled over there. Okay, so when I am writing into the database object, we must make sure that no other user is at the same time reading from the database or writing into the database. This we call it as mutual exclusion. When I am writing when I am changing the balance from the database object, so when I am changing, no other transaction is allowed to change that balance or allowed to read that balance. This type of locks, we call that as exclusive locks. There are two types of locks, shared locks and exclusive locks. So now we have a lock based protocol called two-phase locking. Two-phase locking, in short we call it as 2PL. In this 2PL there are two phases, growing phase and shrinking phase. So what is this growing phase is, you will start applying the locks. Okay, so whenever I need database object, first of all, I need to apply lock on that, then use it and then release the locks. Let's suppose I want to read any data object from the database. Student table is there. I want to read the marks of my student. Roll number 5, I want to read the marks. Then I want to read. So what should I do? I should apply a shared lock on roll number 5 and read the marks and then release the lock. Fine. Now let's suppose I want to change her marks. Roll number 5 marks I want to change. I want to update her marks. I want to add more 5 to that marks. Then first of all, I need to apply a lock on her row so that no other teacher will change that at the same time. Complete row. On that complete row I am applying lock, exclusive lock. Exclusive lock will not allow any other users to read as well as write from the thing. Okay, so apply an exclusive lock on that, use the database object and release the locks. Okay, fine. Now here two-phase locking has two phases, growing phase and shrinking phase. So what is this growing phase is? In growing phase, the transaction applies the locks. Applies all the locks, whatever database objects it want to use, it will apply the lock. It will not release the locks in this phase. Okay, let's suppose I want to change the marks of A and B, student A and student B. So I'll apply change. I want to change. When I want to change, what kind of lock I should apply? Exclusive lock. So you apply exclusive lock on database object A and exclusive lock on database object B. Okay, then change their marks, change A marks and change B marks and release both A and B. This must be done. So this type of protocol, we call it as log based protocol. So if you observe in log based protocol, in the first phase you have to apply all the logs. Let's suppose I want to change the marks of A and B. So I want to add 5 marks. So I want to add 5 marks to A. So what I am doing? Apply exclusive lock on A. Fine. Then add marks. A is equal to A plus 5. Right. Then what do? I want to change the marks of B. I want to change the marks of apply B. Then what do? I'll apply again exclusive lock on B. Why exclusive lock? Because I want to update. Whenever I want to write, you have to apply an exclusive lock. Then change the marks of B. B is equal to B plus 5. Once your transaction is done, you start releasing the locks. Unlock A or unlock B. Once you start releasing the locks, you are not supposed to apply any more locks. This is what is two-phase locking. You will have two phases, growing phase and shrinking phase. In the growing phase, I'll go on applying the locks. and I'll use the database objects, and in the shrinking phase I'll release the locks whatever. So even if I am not releasing the locks, with the last statement, what is the last statement of transactions? Either commit or rollback. So once you execute commit transaction, all the locks whatever the transaction has applied, all the locks will be automatically released. So this is what is two-phase locking. This two-phase locking will ensure serializability and will solve all the three problems of the concurrency control. What were the three problems of the concurrency control? Lost update, dirty read problem, phantom read problem, all it will solve. How? See here, I want to change the value of A and B. Transaction T2, there is another teacher who also want to change the values of A and B. Okay, now when I have applied already lock on A, other teacher also, transaction T2 also applied an exclusive lock on A. But this lock will not be granted to her as I have already applied. Right. So until I release it, this lock will not be, this database object cannot be used by that teacher. So she has to wait. The transaction will be waiting. It will be going on. Did you observe any time? The loading it will take time because that transaction is already busy with some other students. So this is waiting. So I'll update even the B values. Then when I release this transaction will be getting A value. Then she'll be able to read the A value and she'll be able to change the A value. This is how the concurrency control problem will be solved. The updates, whatever intermediate updates, whatever are done by the transaction T1 are not seen by the T2. So this is how the concurrency is controlled. Fine. And it will even ensure the serializability also. What is serializability? Though the transactions execute concurrently, the final result of this execution must be in some order of serial schedules. That is what is serialized. So 2PL, two-phase locking protocol, will ensure the serializability as well as it will control the concurrency problem by solving all the three problems. Fine. So this is one of the best and easy mechanism to control the concurrency. But this will, see here, if you see the slide, you can have a better example of this locking mechanism. So first transaction T1 applies transaction T2 applies begin transaction and it applies an exclusive lock on balance X at time T3. At time T3, transaction T1 has started, and at T4, transaction T1 has applied exclusive lock on balance X, but already it is held by T2. So transaction T2 will not release it until it completes the transaction. So what the transaction T1 is doing? It is waiting. Okay. So once the transaction T2 completes its execution, commit will be executed. Once the commit executes, all the changes, whatever the changes the transaction T2 has done, that changes will be stored in the database, and all the locks whatever it has applied, that will be released. Once the lock is released on balance X, it will be read by the transaction T1. So when it now reads the balance from the database, whatever updation is done by the T2 which is committed will be seen by the T1. So now once it reads the balance of X from database, it will be the updated balance of T2. So this is how the concurrency control mechanism, two-phase locking protocol, will solve all the three concurrency control problems. Fine. But if you see, if you just see at the other example, it will lead to another problem called as database locks. So if you see the database if you could see, it will lead to another problem, and that problem we call it as deadlocks. Okay, so concurrency control mechanism will solve all the problems. What all problems it will solve? It will solve even the concurrency control problems, all the three problems it will solve, and it will ensure the serializability. But the main problem it will raise is deadlocks. So what is this deadlock? First of all, we'll see what is this deadlock. Just look at the slide. What is this deadlock? There are two transactions, T1 and T2. So transaction T1 also want to access balance X and Y. Transaction T2 also want to access balance X and balance Y. Right, both are accessing on the same database objects. I told you already, if both the transactions are working on different database objects, T1 is working on balance X and T2 is working on balance Y, even if they execute serially, or concurrently, parallelly, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter and it doesn't affect. Okay, so concurrency will be solved over here. But over here, both the transactions are working on the same database objects, and according to the 2PL protocol, what should be done? Transaction T1 also want to update the marks of A and B. Transaction T2 also want to update the marks of A and B. So just to see over here, this is transaction T1, one teacher want to update the marks of two students A and B. Another teacher is executing transaction T2. She also want to update the marks of A and B. So what is happening over here is, first this teacher applied exclusive lock on database object A, because she want to update the, see here, transaction T1, transaction T2. First she has applied exclusive lock on A. At the same time, this teacher has applied an exclusive lock on B. Exclusive lock on B. So when it applies exclusive lock on A, what has happened is, it can use A, read as well as write. T2 can write the values of B as well as read. Fine. So now here it has changed. This transaction, this teacher has changed the A values plus 5 it has done. Now this teacher has changed the B value to B plus some 10 marks is added. Now it has written back to the database, this teacher, and this teacher also has written back the values of B onto the database. Now what happens, this teacher now want to change the marks of B. It tries to apply an exclusive lock, it tries to apply an exclusive lock on B. But will it be granted? Will this lock be granted? No, this lock will not be granted, because this lock is already held by the transaction T2. Now this teacher also want to change the marks of A. So now this transaction will apply exclusive lock on A. This lock also will not be granted, because this A is already held by this transaction T1. Right. So what happens here? T1 is waiting for T2 to release B, and T2 is waiting for T1 to release B. So one transaction is waiting for other transaction to release that database objects. This, I want to update the marks of B, but this is already held by other teacher. So I have to wait until she finishes that transaction, and she has to wait until I finishes this record. So this waiting, T1 is waiting for T2 and T2 is waiting for T1. So this indefinite waiting of one transaction for the other transaction, we call it as deadlocks. So 2PL will solve the other problems, but it will raise another problem called as deadlocks. Indefinite waiting, we call it as deadlocks. So what to do with this deadlock? How do we control this deadlocks? Okay, so what are the ways? How do we control this deadlocks? So there are three different ways of handling deadlocks. First one, the simplest method is timeout. What you will do? Last day, tomorrow is the last date for the ISET notification, everyone started applying. So CPU over there in the server system, which is deployed maybe in Osmania University and all, so that is busy executing all the student transactions. It is executing first student transaction, then the next student also tries to access that CPU, tries to apply. So the CPU is busy executing these all transactions. Fine. So here, when the other student, the 10th student starts applying at the same time, concurrently all the students are applying at the same time, the system will enter into deadlock. It will be waiting for the resource, it will enter into deadlock. So how to solve this problem? What the 100th student or 10th student will get a message saying that the server is down. Okay, so timeout is, in order to break this, see here T1 is waiting for T2 here. How long T1 will be waiting for T2? How long T1 will be waiting for T2? And how long T2 will be waiting for T1? This should not be indefinite. This should not be indefinite. So when this waiting comes, the system will understand that when both the processes are not executing, the system will understand that the system is in the deadlock. In order to resolve this deadlock, after few seconds, maybe after 5 seconds or after 10 seconds, it will cancel, it will kill one of the transaction. So your transaction, your whatever application you have done, that it will come back saying that the server is down. Okay. So after few seconds, it will be coming out. So after 5 seconds, this transaction will be killed, and this T2 is allowed to execute. Once T2 executes everything, it will release A as well as B, and A and B will be given to T2 and T1, and T1 will restart again. Just one more example is your OTP. When you do any bank transactions, you will get one OTP. So this OTP generally will be valid only for 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, the timeout period takes place, and the transaction, if transaction couldn't execute in that time, the timeout you will get. Okay. So this is the first method of handling deadlocks. How the timeout will hand after 5 seconds, one of the transaction will be killed, other transaction will be given a chance, the transaction complete it and will release A and B, and it will be given to another transaction, and another transaction will be restarted. The next one is deadlock prevention. What do we mean by prevention? Prevention is better than cure. What do we mean by this? So in the beginning stage itself, we will not allow any deadlock to occur. So here very big algorithm has to be executed beginning itself. So each and every transaction before it executes, it will be checked whether the deadlock will occur or not. This could be done using two protocols called as wait die and wound wait algorithm. So what are these wait die is, each and every transaction when it begins, it will be given one timestamp. Let's suppose T1 transaction has started at 10 o'clock. T2's transaction started at 1 minute. So this is the older transaction. Older transaction will be given a timestamp, let's suppose 100 if it is given. The new transaction which has started later than T1 is given the next timestamp 101, like that. So what is wait die is, only the older transactions are allowed to wait for the younger transactions. Okay. Otherwise, if younger transaction is in the second one, won't wait. If younger transaction is waiting for the older transaction, that younger transaction is killed, and the older transaction is given a chance to complete the transaction. So in the first case, timeout or deadlock prevention, one of the transaction will be killed and the other transaction is allowed to complete quickly, so that all will be released, all the database objects will be released from that and given to the other transaction. Coming to the last one, deadlock detection and recovery mechanism. So deadlock detection and recovery mechanism is very optimistic method. Why we are calling here as an optimistic method? So the system is very optimistic that the deadlock will never occur, and these deadlocks will occur very rarely. Very rarely you will get a message from, if you are doing any transactions, very rarely you will get a message saying that server is down or some messages like that. So what is deadlock detection is, if transaction T1 is waiting for transaction T2 or T1 is waiting for T2, this could be identified with the help of wait for graph. Do you know what is graph? Graph is a collection of nodes and edges. Here the transactions are said to be the nodes, and transactions, how many transactions are here? T1 and T2. Transactions are considered to be as nodes, and if T1 is waiting for T2, there we will draw an edge from T1 to T2. And if T2 is waiting for T1, we will draw an edge from T2 to T1. Fine. So this is what is wait for graph. We will draw this, the system at regular intervals will use this wait for graph and will detect whether in this wait for graph is there a cycle or not. What is a cycle? Loop. Check whether there is a cycle in this graph or not. From here to here, yes, there is a cycle. If there is a cycle in this wait for graph, the system will come to a conclusion that there is a deadlock in the system, right? So how to recover from this deadlock is, now in this cycle, break one of the edge so that the cycle will be broken. So even if you break this edge or this edge, the cycle will be broken. So what does it do is, it will kill one of the transaction so that this edge will be broken and the cycle will be removed, and it will give T2 all the resources so that T2 could finish all the transaction completely, and once it commits, all the resources will be released. That released resources are given to the next transaction which is waiting, and the transaction will be restarted. So these are the three methods of handling deadlock. So I conclude, we have started with what is transaction, what are the different states of the transactions, properties of the transactions, why the transactions has to execute concurrently, what are the advantages. Okay, there are many advantages, but at the same time there are disadvantages. So to overcome these disadvantages, we have different concurrency control mechanisms. So using this concurrency control mechanisms, we can control the concurrency. Fine, but though we control this concurrency, it will lead to another problem called as deadlock. So what is deadlock we have done, and how do we recover from that deadlocks also, methods of handling that deadlock also we have done. Okay, so this covers almost half part of the unit for this current semester for BCom and BSc second years. So you can definitely expect 2 short questions or 1 short question and 1 long question from here. Fine. Okay, so I'll give you one assignment. You just try to create some database on these corona patients analysis. Okay, some assignment, try to collect which state has is recovering soon, or which case. Try to create the database, try to just identify what all columns you can include in this tables, because it is a new database. In olden databases in medical departments, this might have not been included. Okay, so you create your own database and try to find out what all transactions could be done on that table. Fine, thank you.